In Donetsk, Ukraine, one can see all the forgotten scenes from the world wars.
А чё? Там батька поверне. Пострел!
Since the start of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, a small region of Bakhmut is witnessing intense fights from both the sides. Often called as the meat grinder, why are the Russians and the Ukrainians fighting over this small piece of land? Both the sides are suffering heavily in Bakhmut, be it human life, resources, money, you name it. But even after all these losses, why the Battle of Bakhmut is so important for both the sides? To understand why, we need to dig into the dark, untold secrets of this shady little town that only the Soviets knew. Bakhmut is a small salt mining region in the western Ukraine. This appears as not an important area of interest, at least for the general public. But looking at the forces deployed in the region, it looks like a gold mine for both the forces. The Russians retreated from the Kherson region last year, fearing human casualties. But every day the Russians are losing hundreds of soldiers in Bakhmut. Still, they are pushing for this brutal war. Why? So let's get started. After a year of battle, the Solidar has fallen into the Russian hands. This has given little confidence for the Putin army. But in the beginning of the war, things were not that easy for them. Unexpected retaliation from the Ukrainian forces took back much of the land claimed by the Russian forces. This came together with heavy human casualties. Russians also faced setbacks when there were multiple attacks in the Crimean Peninsula and the Nord Stream pipelines last year. But recently there is a change in the winds for the Russian side. Along with the powerful private army, the Wagner troops, they have taken back the city of Solidar. There's traditional war tactics used by the Russians here, along with the modern war resources like war drones and the advanced battle stations. So, after Solidar, the Russian troops along with its Wagner force are approaching Bakhmut from three sides. In the history of wars, we have seen many brutal wars like the Battle of Stalingrad in the World War II, the Battle of Mosul in the Iraq War, and many more. Many of these battles had the power to turn the tides of the war. Until now, the Battle of Mariupol was considered the most brutal in this war. Mariupol was the powerhouse of the famous Azov Battalion of Ukraine. Since May 2022, Mariupol is controlled by the Russians. But as the war progressed, the most fierce war zone of this war is a 15 square mile radius within the Bakhmut city. Due to the brutal war records of its recent past, the city is often called as the meat grinder. Both the sides are losing heavily in Bakhmut. According to a report from the German Foreign Intelligence, hundreds of soldiers are killed every day in this zone, and almost 3 times of this number are injured. But surprisingly, both the countries have not yet officially published their losses. But it's believed that the total man loss here outnumbers the losses recorded in the other war fronts of this battle. The battle in Bakhmut is led by the Wagner troops for Russia. Meanwhile, for Ukraine, the battle is the joint force of Ukraine Army and the Ukraine Foreign Legion. The Legion consists of unofficial soldiers from NATO and troops from Georgia and Scandinavia. As per the Russian intelligence, for Ukraine, the battle is fought almost by 70% of foreign troops. According to unconfirmed sources, since the start of the war, the human casualty from these foreign troops is seen around 3,000 to 5,000. The trenches dug along the city resembles that of the world wars. Both the sides have dug deep trenches throughout the city. There is a military phrase saying, "If you want to survive, dig deep." According to the sources from the Ukraine army, the Wagner forces are sending human waves towards the Ukrainian trenches. It's reported that these men are fearless and brave, but as per the Western intelligence sources, most of these men are prisoners serving sentences in Russia. Once these human waves are engaged by the Ukrainian troops, the location of the trenches are revealed. which is then followed by the tank and drone attacks by the Russians to flush out the trenches. Ukraine also engages drones to find out such insurgencies and retaliates with fierce tank attacks. Even though the Russians have upper hand with weapons and ammunitions, the Ukrainians are offering fierce resistance to them. There are days where the Russian advancements are just 3 meters. As discussed earlier, the Russian troops are approaching Bakhmut from 3 sides. Out of the 3 main highways, the 2 are controlled by the Russians. Only the MO3 is still the supply source for Ukrainian troops. It is believed that if this highway is compromised, Bakhmut won't hold for long. Coming into the military deployments in Bakhmut, Ukraine has stationed 10 brigades of soldiers, which is roughly 30,000 soldiers. From the Russian sides, this number is not officially revealed, but as per the sources, the number could be double of the Ukrainian forces. Another notable action in Bakhmut are the kamikaze suicide drones used by the Russians. It's estimated at least 450 drones has been used in the attack so far in this region. The kamikaze drones are the suicide drones from Iran, solely brought for the Battle of Bakhmut. There are experts who believe that the fall of Bakhmut can lead to the fall of Donbass. Bakhmut is well connected to the rail and roadways and hence connected to the rest of Ukraine. Fall of Bakhmut can lead to the war extending into the interior regions of Donbass. If Bakhmut falls, the rest of Ukraine will fall pretty fast, according to some war experts. Hence, the main aim of Ukrainian forces will be to drag the war and buy some more time for strategic planning and Western aid. The German Foreign Intelligence has warned Ukraine of spending more money and resources in Bakhmut alone. This has the potential to affect other defenses across the war fronts. As Ukraine is seeking help from the European Union to get more sophisticated weapons like the Abrams tank and more advanced fighter jets, it's important for Ukraine to hold Bakhmut until the aid arrives. Ukraine was initially dormant on the Wagner claim over Solidar. Ukraine officially accepted the fall of Solidar days after the Wagner claim. This is believed to be done to uphold the confidence of the Ukrainian troops. In Bakhmut, Russia is unleashing the most brutal war. Day in and day out, Russia is shelling the area. According to the reports, due to this continuous bombings and shellings, a minority of the Ukraine force are said to be deeply demotivated. Incidents of soldiers leaving the post and war zone is also reported. President Zelensky has imposed a new rule citing 10 to 15 years of prison sentence to such war deserters. Before getting into the secret that Bakhmut holds, it's important that we look into the Wagner troops. The Wagner troops is one of the most advanced private militaries operating in the world. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the Russian billionaire and the often acclaimed Putin's chef, is the founder and the boss of the Wagner troops. Most of the soldiers of this group are elite soldiers retired from the Russian army and the Russian intelligence. There were also reports citing that many countries have come forward to seek the help of the Wagners. For instance, in Mali, Africa, the Wagner troops has taken charge after the French retreat. Similarly, Burkina Faso has also asked the Wagner troops for the internal security and counter-terrorism. Now, it's time to dig into the secrets that Bakhmut holds. Both the forces are unleashing the battle of the century in these lands. Why? Most war analytics are considering Bakhmut as the cherry in the cake. Yes, the cherry in the cake. The secrets dating back to the Soviet era was revealed by the Wagner boss Prigozhin. There are two sides to this. It is believed that there is an underground city under the city of Bakhmut, which was constructed during the Soviet era. It is believed to be 100 meters down the city, and it's so huge that if captured, this can be used as a logistic hub for Russia for the rest of the war. But Ukraine just denied the claims. They officially stated that there are tunnels under the city, but it is only meant for salt mining purposes. But most analysts believe in Prigozhin's words. During the Cold War, the Soviets were believed to have constructed dozens of such cities throughout the USSR, and most of them are capable nuclear bunkers. It's a known fact that the USSR had a nuclear shield city under the Pacific to counter the Cold War threats. Hence, we cannot rule out the possibility of an underground nuclear city or network of tunnels under Bakhmut. But there is yet another reason for Bakhmut to be in the front lines. Even though both the countries had not officially stated this, these underground tunnels are not just empty. The tunnels beneath Bakhmut is believed to be the storehouse of weapons and ammunition from the Cold War era. It is believed that it has also weaponry received from the US under the Land Lease Agreement. Historically, Ukraine was one of the most influential areas in USSR. According to the records, till late 1990s, the Soviets had used the Bakhmut tunnels for storing armories. It's estimated around 3 million items in stockpile. According to history, after the sudden fall of USSR, many countries declared independence and moved out. It's not different in Ukraine as well. According to the experts, during the Ukraine formation, an estimated 3 million tons of armory was left in Ukraine railway network itself. It's a known fact that after the fall of USSR, there was an arms deal with Liberia and Burkina Faso to sell a portion of these weapons. Rest of the armories were sealed and kept in multiple underground depots throughout Ukraine. And believe it or not, Bakhmut tunnels are one of the biggest such depots. So, this can be the most influential reason behind the Battle of Bakhmut. Even after heavy casualties, both the fronts are unleashing brutal wars on these grounds. According to the US intelligence, after these winters, it is believed that the war will be taken to the next degree. It is speculated that Belarus will be soon joining Russia in this war, and once joined, Russia might leave its current defense tactics and move on to the much more open war fronts. To counter this, Ukraine is asking for more sophisticated weaponry from the West. This includes the air defense systems, heavy battle tanks, and next-generation fighter jets. US has already started procedures to hand out the Patriot defense systems and Bradley battle vehicles. Ukraine's request to the West has created a lot of heat among the Western countries. Initially, Ukraine has requested the US for the most sophisticated Abrams M1 tanks. But US just denied this request, stating that the M1 Abrams has jet engines and requires jet fuel for operations. Hence, Ukraine may not be able to support and maintain such costly and sophisticated procedures in the war-torn zone. Instead, the US pointed that the German Leopard 2 tanks will be the best option for Ukraine. But Germany felt that it will be a lot of heat from Russia if it agrees to sell Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, and hence denied the request. Meanwhile, the UK agreed to give its most advanced Challenger tanks to Ukraine. Similarly, Sweden agreed to give the Archer cannons as well. Even though Poland and Spain were ready to give the Leopard 2 tanks, Germany, being the parent seller, denied this using the veto power. But later, Poland insisted that they were ready to countermand Berlin to this tank deal. Later, Germany agreed to the term by the condition that US should also supply the Abrams 1 tanks. After heated debates among the countries, it was agreed that the US will hand over 31 Abrams M1 tanks and Germany to give the 14 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Germany also allowed the resale of Leopard tanks, which essentially allowed other European countries to hand over their arsenals to Ukraine. As of now, Ukraine has asked for 300 tanks from the West, but it's estimated that the allocated tanks would take 3 to 10 months for delivery. Also, Ukraine needs to train its resources to use these sophisticated tanks. The Abrams M1 delivered to Ukraine will not be having all the sophisticated features that it actually has. This is because the Pentagon has not agreed to the terms of giving all the tech to Ukraine. This is a precaution to prevent the leakage of tech into the Russian or the Iranian hands in case it is captured on action. Russia has strictly warned to all nations who are supplying weapons to Ukraine. According to Russia, whoever supplying Ukraine is directly choosing sides in war and should be prepared to deal repressions. Meanwhile, the Russian Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev stated that Russia will not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if Russia faces any threat from the incoming weaponry help. Ukraine is also aiming for Crimea in its war retaliation, according to some experts. But according to the security chief of Russia, Medvedev, any action towards Crimea can be seen as the starting of the Judgment Day. Also, the incoming tank weaponry from the West has to deal with the T-14 tanks of Russia. T-14 tanks are considered the best in the world in the land war. Russia is in the last steps of approving T-14 for mass production. After tanks, Ukraine has also asked for next-generation fighter jets from the West, which includes the F-16s. It's a dreadful task to train the Ukrainian pilots for such sophisticated F-16s who are else only used to the old Soviet fighters. Instead of this, as per the military intelligence desk, US is trying to bring up Afghani fighter jet pilots who have sought asylum in the US. They are planning to be deployed under the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. Most of the NATO members have agreed to give F-16s to the Ukraine if the US nods. But the West is cautious in agreeing to Ukrainians' F-16 requests. Things might get escalated if Russia finds this deal dangerous to them. Hence, the West is taking time on the F-16 matter. On grounds of Western aid to Ukraine, Russia is unleashing heavy missile attacks throughout Ukraine. Russia is aiming for Solidar, an important supply and logistic area for Bakhmut. More to this, Russia is opening war fronts in Zaporizhzhia and Luhansk. On a closer note, February 24th, it will be the anniversary for this brutal war. Many Western intelligence agencies report that Russia is planning to strike harder ahead of this mark. Once the ground settles after the snowy winters, the Russian tanks will once again start its roar and fury in the Ukrainian lands. Also, it's highly possible that Russia will be coming for Kyiv very time soon. To prevent any military actions from Belarus, it's reported that the Ukrainians are deploying mines along the Belarus borders. By this summer, most of the Western help will be reaching Ukraine. This means that the war will be much more fierce and bloody in the coming days. Many thousands have perished in this war. Many left homeless, and the economy and more. How long this battle will wrath its fury? Thanks for watching this show, and we will meet again with another topic another time. Till then, bye bye.